Hey Roanoke, thank you for joining me today on another great episode of If You Noke, You Know, a municipal podcast brought to you by the City of Roanoke. I'm your host, Carol Corbin, and I'm here to bring you all things Roanoke. We're going behind the scenes and learning more about the good and interesting things happening around the Star City, and introducing you to some of the amazing people who are serving our community and how the work they do impacts both our city and you. Happy fall, y'all. October in Blue Ridge is a beautiful time of year. When I think of October, I'm thinking shorter, cooler days, hiking and seeing the mountains turning red and orange and yellow. I'm thinking Go Fest, which is always the weekend after Columbus Day, Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm thinking flannel shirts and fire pits and the holiday season being right around the corner. But you know what else we should be thinking about? Safety. Every October, we celebrate and recognize Fire Prevention Week, and it is also nationally known as Pedestrian Safety Month. Joining us on today's episode are three extraordinary people that I have the pleasure of working with who are dedicated to your safety, Roanoke. First up is Community Risk Reduction Specialist with our Fire-EMS department, Rachel Hale, who will be here to talk about this year's campaign for Fire Prevention Week and tips and reminders on how you can reduce the risk of fire. Next up will be the city's Vision Zero coordinator, Issem, who will break down what exactly Vision Zero means. And our final guest on today's show is Captain Jennifer Boswell from the Roanoke City Police Department, who will be sharing about the community forums being held across the city of Roanoke and why you will want to attend. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to If You Noke, You Know. Would you be able to introduce yourself to our listeners? Let us know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am Rachel Hale. I am the Community Risk Reduction Specialist for Roanoke Fire-EMS. I've worked for the city and the fire department for the last 2 years. Something that I really love about my work and the work that my colleagues do is that it has a direct impact on helping keep our community safe, and that is so important.
Absolutely. And Community Risk Reduction Specialist is a mouthful. What does that mean?
So that means that one of my jobs is looking at the risks that our community faces. It's not just fires or falling. It changes all the time. So one of my jobs is to keep an eye on what we can do to help prevent accidents and fires before they start.
Gotcha. And that's really interesting for me because honestly, in thinking about this interview, I was only thinking about fires because we are in Fire Prevention Week and probably Fire Prevention Month as well. But yeah, Fire-EMS does so much more than just fires.
Yeah, so Fire Prevention Week is observed each year during the week of October 9th.
Okay.
It commemorates the Great Chicago Fire, which started on October 8th, 1871. And it was a huge fire. It burned for several days. It killed more than 250 people. It left 100,000 people homeless. It destroyed more than 17,000 structures in the city of Chicago.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was a huge fire. So in 1922, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, started Fire Prevention Week. And in 1925, President Calvin Coolidge made it a national observance, which means that it is actually the longest running public health observance in the country.
Oh, wow. That's one, sad and cool all at the same time. Yeah, that Chicago fire sounds horrible. I mean, we've never had anything even close to that here. But, I mean, maybe because there's been weeks like National Fire Prevention Week that help us learn about that.
Yes, we'll take the credit for that.
We'll take credit for it, yeah. We're going to give Rachel credit for it today because she's with us now. So since this is an annual event, I'm assuming they have themes to these events. Can you explain what this year's theme is?
Yeah, so this year's theme is Cooking Safety Starts With You, Pay Attention to Fire Prevention.
Okay, and what sort of things or tips are being covered in Fire Prevention Week for cooking safety? I know that one thing that I saw was Stand By Your Pan, and when I saw that, all I can think of is the country song Stand By Your Man.
Right, yeah. So we come up with these catchy things to help people remember, because when we say unattended cooking, people don't always know what that means.
Yeah.
So we say things like stand by your pan because it helps you remember. The other thing we say now is keep an eye on what you fry.
Absolutely, yeah. No, catchy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it gets straight to the point.
Yes.
And so I guess, is that one of the leading causes of fires, is sort of the unattended cooking or kitchen accidents?
Yeah, so cooking-related fires are one of the leading causes of fires in the U.S. 2 out of every 5 home fires in the United States is cooking-related or kitchen-related in some way.
Interesting. Because, of course, like I always think about like turkeys at Thanksgiving. I'm sure that's a big day for your department.
Yes, absolutely.
But also, I think about myself, and I am a good cook, I promise, but I let water like boil out of the bottom of a pot. And obviously that didn't cause a fire, but there was so much smoke, I thought there was a fire.
Right. We see stuff like that. Or sometimes it's not even that somebody is cooking, it's that they've left something on the stovetop and the stovetop gets turned on somehow. Like, this sounds unbelievable, but not too long ago we had a fire where there were things left on the stove that were not food. They were just flammable items. And someone's cat got on the stovetop and turned on the eye, and it caught fire. Don't just stand by your pan. Also make sure that you don't have flammable items around your stovetop, even when you're not cooking.
Absolutely. Of course a cat would do that. Sorry to all the cat people out there. But then again, as soon as you said that, all I could think of is my dogs and how I've got dogs who are counter cruisers, and I'm always terrified that they're going to put their paws up on the stove because they're interested in what's cooking there.
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. We got to stay in the kitchen when we have things going on. Are you able to give us like an estimate of the number of fires that we respond to each year here in Roanoke?
So in 2022, we had about 5,800 fire calls from the fire department. So of those, 68 were working fires, which working fires are the fires when our personnel arrive and they see smoke and flames and they need to call for more resources. Not every fire is that big.
Okay.
But we do get a number of fire calls. A lot of times it's smaller, smoke, doesn't require a huge response, but there are a lot of calls.
Wow. I don't know what number I was anticipating, but it was not in the 5,000s.
Yes.
That's a lot. Because really, I think there's been such a lot of education and response that has been made around fires that when I think about the fire departments, I think more about the ambulances and the EMS response. But fires are obviously still happening.
Yes.
Multiple times a day if
Yes.
we have 5,000.
Yes, yeah. We actually had a fire just over the weekend.
Was it a working fire?
It
Now that I
was
know
a
what that
working
means.
fire.
Gotcha. And that's nothing to laugh about. But now that I know what that means, like I've seen our social media page has posted before about working fires and kind of thinking, oh, what is a working fire? But yeah, they get there and they actually have a lot of work to do to put that out. Absolutely. And so I guess, do we see a lot of kitchen fires or cooking related instances of those 5,000?
Yeah, so I took a look this morning at the data for 2023, and we've had around 40 cooking fires in Roanoke just this year.
Oh, wow.
Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think about the amount of damage that can be caused from something that is entirely preventable, it is a lot.
That absolutely is a lot. And I guess when you're looking at data and you're taking this information, where does that come from? Who determines what the cause of the fire is?
We have fire investigators. We have some in the field who ride the trucks every day, and then we also have the fire marshal's office, and that is one of their biggest jobs is fire investigations.
Is figuring out what caused it, where it came from.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Cause and origin.
Cause and origin. I'm learning all kinds of like fun descriptors today. Yeah, because I mean, I guess in my head too, obviously this year's theme is cooking, but when I think about fires, I always picture like the 90s TV after school special, like the candle falls over and catches the curtains on fire. And
we actually have seen those, even since I've been here in the last few years, fires that have started from candles and things like that. So it sounds a little cheesy when you think about the after school specials and things like that, but it really does happen.
It does happen.
Yeah.
Wow. And so when we're talking about preventing these type of fires, whether they're cooking related or not, are there any best practices or tips that you can provide our listeners, or places where they can go to get more information?
Sure. So one of the biggest things we always tell people is that you need to have a plan for fire escape, and you need to practice that plan. If you live by yourself, you need to practice by yourself. If you have more people in your household, you need to make sure that everybody knows the plan and that you all practice it, because these days you have about 2 minutes to escape from a home fire.
Okay.
Yes.
That's good to know. Like, I kind of want to have a stopwatch now.
Yes. So have a plan, practice your plan. Make sure you have working smoke alarms is also very, very important. A lot of fires happen at night when people are sleeping. And if you don't have that alarm to wake you up, it's not going to end well. So make sure you have working smoke alarms, test them every month. After 10 years, they need to be replaced.
Well, and not to take us off of fire, but I am a queen of tangent here. Our listeners do know that. The only time I have ever had to have the fire department come to my home was in my previous home, middle of the night, and my smoke detector just started making weird noises. And in my head, I was like, it's probably the batteries are probably dying, whatever. I just need to take it off the wall, take the batteries out. But I was like, why is it making this weird noise? Like, just something wouldn't give up on me, like, to think about it. So I called 911. Fire department came in like 35 seconds because they were so close. And it turns out I actually had one of the combination fire carbon monoxide detectors, and I had work done on my house the week before on the chimney, and the people who did the work forgot to reopen the flue. And so they were like, yeah, you need to evacuate the house immediately. Wow. We had to open all the windows. And so the only time I ever had to call Roanoke City Fire, they saved my life.
That's awesome. Always,
so
especially
always having those working alarms.
Gas appliances, you should have carbon monoxide alarms as well.
Yeah, so scary. But back to fire prevention. Any type of alarms, having working alarms is important, and to not ignore them like you may want to do in the middle of the night.
Yes. Never ignore an alarm, even if it's just from your bad cooking. You should go ahead and go through the motions and practice it as if it was a real fire. Because if you ignore it, it's subconsciously your brain like turns off. You're like, oh, it's just, it's just the kitchen again. I'm just going to roll over and go back to sleep. And that's dangerous.
That is super great advice. And especially having kids, really getting them, that's a great time to practice. It goes off, we're just going to do it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Any other tips that we have?
So stand by your pan, keep an eye on what you fry. Another good thing to do is make sure that you're turning pot handles toward the back of the stove, especially if you have young children in the home or pets. Pets. Because they can knock that over very easily and get hurt. For
more information for our community, where can folks go to learn more, get more info from the fire department?
So you can get some safety tips and learn more about the services that we provide, including free smoke alarms for city residents by visiting us on the web at roanokeva.gov/fire-EMS.
And we will link that in the bio description. That way you can just click on the link and get there quickly.
Yes, and we're also on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter, at Roanoke Fire-EMS. And we post safety tips there and events that we're hosting and taking part in. And if you have kids at home and you want them to learn a little bit about fire safety, they can visit sparky.org. There's a lot of really fun activities and coloring pages and stuff. That way they have a fun way to learn about fire prevention as well.
Absolutely. And is it still a thing where, like, if you have a young child, you could reach out to a fire station and bring them by to see the trucks and to meet the firefighters?
Yeah, absolutely. We do tours and school visits. If you just want to come by the station with your family, if it's just like you and your children, as long as the bay doors are open, you can stop by.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Just stop on in.
Yep.
I may do that.
Yeah, absolutely. You should. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, Rachel. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And for all of our listeners, please go to our website, follow Roanoke Fire-EMS on social media for more tips on how you can be safer and reduce your risks of fire. All right, Roanoke. We now have our second guest of the episode, our Vision Zero coordinator, Rob Issem. Rob, can you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Sure. Hello, listeners. I'm Rob Issem. I am the Transportation Department's Vision Zero and Complete Streets Coordinator. And I've been with the city just over a year at this time.
And what do you do with Vision Zero? Can you explain the Vision Zero program to the listeners?
Sure. Vision Zero is a policy adopted by cities across the world and it is to try to get to 0 serious injuries and traffic fatalities on our streets. So in the city of Roanoke over the last decade has averaged ranged from like 5 to 13 deaths annually, and of course more serious injuries than that. And so and the city council and our government is committed to taking steps to reduce those numbers to 0. Like, no traffic fatalities are acceptable. Everybody's life counts.
And so in saying that, even for myself personally, when I think of Vision Zero, I'm thinking about pedestrians and cyclists, but this also includes people in cars as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So it's everyone that uses our roadways. Pedestrians, cyclists, people in wheelchairs, delivery drivers, kids getting to school, everyone.
Everyone. That's a big job, Rob. That's a very big job. What type of steps are you taking? What does someone do to even try to tackle that?
So the first thing that happened, and the reason I was hired at the time that I was, is there was an opportunity for all cities in the United States to apply for some grant funding from the federal government. It's a National Safe Streets for All program. And we applied for a planning grant, which enables us to work with consultants, and we're also working with researchers at Virginia Tech to develop a Vision Zero action plan for the city, which is really a blueprint for us moving forward to get from where we are to a safer city for everyone.
And what type of things are you looking at in that blueprint? Are we looking at like crosswalks, and are we looking at sidewalks? Like, what? I'm sure I'm pulling the low-hanging fruit here, Rob.
No, that's great. Thank you. So literally all of the above, everything you can imagine. So we'll look at intersections. A lot of accidents happen at intersections. We'll look at corridors where there's high injury networks, they're considered. So Williamson Road has been the topic of a lot of discussion with regard to this. Both motorists and pedestrians have had a lot of accidents on that road. So and there's a lot of planning and analysis going on to be sure we're choosing the safest approach to increasing safety while maintaining the vibrancy and the traffic flow. So it's really important. So the Safe Streets for All plan has to increase safety first and foremost, but it also has to be equity increasing and climate positive. So we can't just slow down all the motorists to a crawl and have all these idling cars in our city. That would be a negative for us in a climate sense. And then the other thing too, disadvantaged communities have often, and in our city this is true as well, been disproportionately affected by highway accidents and roadway injuries and fatalities. So we want to make sure that we're taking steps to mitigate that as well.
And in saying that, would that be, there's probably a lot of reasons why that's the case, but because they're having to deal more with being a pedestrian or with substandard transportation?
So both are true. So the percentage of households that have cars in our disadvantaged communities is smaller. Mm-hmm. So they are walking and using public transportation more often than other communities. Also, oftentimes the infrastructure in those communities is not to the same standard that it is in other areas, and that's something that we're working to improve across the board. But our Vision Zero action plan will kind of give us a roadmap on how to approach it, and it'll be prioritized and strategized too. So we'll see what are the areas where we can make the greatest safety gains, and what safety countermeasures can we use that'll have the best bang for the buck. So it'll kind of instruct us here's a plan, and here's where you should start as a city.
And is there a timeline for the Vision Zero blueprint to sort of be completed? I'm sure it will always be evolving, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. It's a living document, so it'll forever be evolving and changing and developing. But we have a goal of having it completed by next June. That's going to give us an opportunity to apply for implementation funding. The deadline for those applications is next July. So, for example, our RFP that's about to go out, which is a request for proposals, the consultant that we'll work with is instructed to basically complete the work within 4 months and have it ready like through city council approval within 6 months, so that way we're prepared to apply for implementation funding.
So you're saying it's good I got you in now because you are going to be really busy for the next 6 to 8 months.
That's right.
So with part of the Vision Zero program, we also have in the transportation division as a whole our pedestrian safety campaigns, and I think that falls in your realm. Can you talk to us about those campaigns?
Yeah, so we've had a number of safety campaigns over the last 4 years. I'm sure a lot of the people listening are familiar with the Every Corner is a Crosswalk, No Need for Speed, the School Zone Safety Campaign. The most recent campaign was Change Lanes to Pass, which the folks here at RVTV have helped with all of these campaigns. It's been amazing work.
Shout out RVTV.
That's right. And we actually, super tied to Pedestrian Safety Month is our next safety campaign. Liz Ackley had done some research, and she had interviewed households that had elementary age students. And the parents reported that the number one and number two activities that the kids were involved in were walking around and then riding their bikes. And they said that those same parents said their top concerns were people speeding in neighborhood streets and failing to yield adequately when kids are crossing the streets. So our next pedestrian safety campaign is Youth Active Transportation and Recreation. And that is basically it's an educational campaign like all of the prior campaigns, but it's basically to increase motorist yielding in neighborhood settings. Basically, we want kids to feel like they can go to the park and play, or they can walk or bike to school, and the parents feel safe and the kids feel safe. And we've done some things educationally and otherwise in our city to actually make them more safer doing those active things.
Well, and thank you for the great segue. One, great campaign, but two, I believe it was last year we had the traffic garden at West Side, which fits into this campaign so great. I mean, it almost seems like we should have another event there to kind of celebrate. Would there be anything more on the horizon, like the traffic garden, that would come as a result of this campaign or with the campaign?
In fact, just this weekend during GoFest, they set up another traffic garden at the GoFest grounds. And that's something that can be done so we have a beautiful permanent traffic garden at Westside Elementary, but those traffic gardens can be created and those signs can kind of be moved around because we have a bunch of portable elements to that traffic garden, and then there's the stuff that's painted on the ground. So other elementary schools and other schools throughout the region will eventually have traffic gardens that are permanent, but in the meantime, administrators and teachers,
like a mobile traffic garden, just set it up. Interesting.
Like a pop-up traffic garden. Yeah.
A pop-up traffic garden. We're starting kids young with the pop-ups.
Yeah.
No, that's so cool. And so you mentioned something earlier when you were talking about sort of the intersections and safety in our streets. And I wanted to ask this towards the end because, I don't like to be controversial on here. This is a feel-good show. But I need you to change my mind on something, Rob. Why do we like roundabouts? Why is a roundabout more safe than an intersection? Change my mind.
Do you not like roundabouts?
I like them when no one else is there and I get to just ride around and go.
Yeah.
That's the part that I love it. But when there are other people there, I feel like it becomes, do I go? Do I not go? Do they go? Do they get to go? But I want to go in.
So the good news is that even if you're having trouble making the decision of what to do, once you make a decision, the geometry of a roundabout makes you safer once you enter it. So a traditional intersection is T intersections. So the accidents that are occurring are right angle accidents where one car is T-boning another car. That is the most dangerous type of motor vehicle accident. With the exception of head-on collisions. So a roundabout eliminates both of those. There's no head-on and there's no right angle. Everything is at a
don't
more
bring geometry
gradual...
into it.
But that geometry is saving you.
And I love how you mentioned that, because I would have never thought that was the reason that it made it safer.
Yeah, you can imagine every and there are some. I mean, I will say, for example, the roundabout at Colonial and Overland. Yeah,
that's the last roundabout I went through.
Yeah, so
there's no one there. It was perfect.
Oh, good. But if you look at the heat map for that accident, there's nothing. I mean, actually, there's some signs that have been knocked down by bad drivers, okay. but there haven't been, and there's no serious injuries, or definitely no fatalities in that. So they're really effective. That's why they're popular around the world. And that one's pretty well designed. So you'll see that there's ways for cyclists to go around that roundabout without entering the roundabout, and they can use the pedestrian infrastructure to get across as well. So it's really well thought out from a pedestrian as well as a cyclist and motorist standpoint. And that particular roundabout is going to get rectangular rapid flashing beacons too, because there were some close calls, just motorists who didn't realize, they were making a right turn and they didn't realize a pedestrian was coming because one other car was stopped. Okay. So it's possible with that type of roundabout design that one motorist can obscure a pedestrian from the view of another motorist. That's why we're going to have those rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which basically alert everybody to the presence of a pedestrian and that you should slow. It gives you advance warning. So that's going to become an even safer roundabout than it already is.
Even safer than it already is. Well, when we start talking about safety, are there any tips or reminders that we can provide our listeners to help them just be a little bit more aware about their safety as they're moving through the city?
For sure. And, when you think about pedestrian safety, pedestrian injuries are not occurring from two pedestrians bumping into each other, or pedestrians hitting a tree or something. Never seen me walk, Rob, no. But really pedestrian safety begins with motorists. It's really important. So this month is Pedestrian Safety Month. And so for us, everyone's a pedestrian, right? Even if you primarily drive your car, you're going to get out of your car, you're going to walk across the parking lot, and you're going to go somewhere. But for drivers, it's really important to have your eyes up and your phone down. And I kind of recommend phone being in the glove box because it just totally takes the temptation of looking down at your phone. That's really where the accidents, or so many of the accidents, are happening. I will say speed it's the number one complaint that we get from the residents of Roanoke, that people are speeding in their street. It's also, as speed increases, it significantly and has a correlation with the increase in the severity of the injury. So there's a campaign that's worldwide called 20 is Plenty, and it's just a challenge in local streets and in neighborhood streets to just drive 20 miles an hour or less. And that's really fast enough, and it feels like a comfortable neighborhood speed if you just try driving it. And then in school zones, 15 miles an hour or less. And then for drivers also, I just say be situationally aware. So around schools, parks, shopping areas, anytime you're at an intersection, because every corner is a crosswalk, like you remember from our prior campaign. And then just expecting the unexpected. Occasionally a pedestrian's going to walk out from between two cars, or a ball's going to roll across the street. So just being extra careful. And then from a pedestrian standpoint, it's eyes up and phone down still applies. It's really important that you are not distracted as a pedestrian. How many times do you see people just walking, even across a parking lot, looking at their phone? That's really dangerous. And then unplug. This is a lot of times people, while they're walking, will wear earbuds. And so either lower the volume down so you really can be aware of your surroundings, or just unplug one earbud. When you get to a place where you're going to cross the street, looking left, right, and then looking left again before crossing. Using crosswalks and corners to cross the street. And one of the things, this is kind of a traffic engineering pet peeve, is we install these great pedestrian signals. So you wave your hand or press a button and it activates the pedestrian signal. So many people don't use them. they get to the crosswalk or the intersection and they don't press or wave their hand, and it's really safety increasing. Like, those work. Use sidewalks when they're present, and we know that they're not everywhere.
Yeah.
So in the event where you have to walk on a street, walk against traffic and as far to the left as is reasonable. That way you can see the motorists, make eye contact with them. And then making eye contact, that's a really big one. So that's whether you're crossing a street or just walking down the street. I like to say that as a pedestrian, just assume the motorists don't see you. And if you behave in a way that you're assuming that they don't see you, then you take steps to protect yourself. A friendly wave is actually really effective. Like, if you're not sure, like if you saw me, just waving and then seeing if you can engage them.
Or if you're awkward like me, give the Starbucks wave, like the, hey, I'm here.
Yeah, that works.
Here, guys. Gonna cross now.
Another like just standard safety tip for pedestrians is to wear bright colored clothing. And I kind of take that a step further. You could wear extravagant costumes while you're walking around.
T-Rex walking down the street.
Yeah, actually my buddy Nate and I we were doing like lunchtime activities like every week. We would get together one day and it was like snowing and we couldn't ride our bikes, and we're like, let's put costumes on and just walk. And we walked around the city. It was really fun. He was wearing a chicken costume and I was wearing a unicorn costume.
Very nice.
Yeah, and then I mentioned don't dart out between cars. And then I thought I'd mention a couple of like Roanoke specific.
I love that.
You were going to ask.
I was going to ask, yes.
Yeah. So for us, like, we have a beautiful networks of greenways, and there's a lot going on greenways, right? So if you're a pedestrian, just be really aware. Another thing that's important is look before doing a U-turn, because a lot of people will be walking along and their watch will say, oh, I reached 2 miles, it's time to turn around, and they'll just like turn. But it's really important to just check before you make that U-turn, because it could be a cyclist coming up or somebody else. And then I would say dogs are awesome.
Yeah.
But keep them close and well controlled if you're a pedestrian, because it's just good for everybody on our greenways. And then cyclists, like we did a piece with RVTV last year, how cyclists can contribute to pedestrian safety. And one of the things that we recorded was to slow down when approaching pedestrians if you're a cyclist. That's whether you're on the road or whether you're on the greenway, and then announce when you're approaching with a bell, or just saying on your left, right? If you don't have a bell, you can make a bell sound with your mouth, bing, or something like that. I have a chicken that I squeeze on my handlebars.
Of course you do. I love that.
And then once you do get to the pedestrian, if you're a cyclist, please pass with care, like in caution. I talked a little bit already about Liz's research that's Roanoke specific. And I think like my like wrap ups for this, like for everybody in Roanoke for pedestrian safety, is just to be present. So like whatever you're doing, whether you're driving or walking or riding a bike, like be doing that thing, and enjoy it, like have fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Eyes up and phone away, whether you're on a bike or walking or driving. Being kind. So you're waving, like a wave and a smile is a great way to just engage and connect.
Absolutely.
Whether it's with someone that's in a car or on a bike that's approaching you, and it's friendly. And then to be caring and careful. And like we all want our city to be like known for being a caring,
yeah,
kind place to live, and like just being like, we have all of these interactions each day with people that are other travelers, whether they're on bikes or just a fellow motorist. And just taking a little extra time, like I promise that taking a little extra time to slowly overtake a cyclist or wave someone by as if they're a pedestrian, and giving them enough time to safely cross the street, like those little caring gestures, it's not going to make you much later for wherever you're going, and you're going to arrive just feeling better, and everyone will be safer. It's just the type of city we want to create.
Very well said. Thank you so much for being here today, Rob. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Without further ado, please welcome to the podcast today's final guest, Captain Jennifer Boswell from the Roanoke Police Department. Captain Boswell, if you could please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hey everyone, Jennifer Boswell. I'm a captain with Roanoke Police Department over the Community Response Bureau.
And a funny story about Captain Boswell and I. We've been sort of working together in the community engagement space for a couple months, and we're kind of at a silent war here, the two of us, because she continues to try to get me to just call her Jennifer, and I cannot do it. And I continuously tell her not to call me ma'am, and I think she does it because I call her Captain Boswell. So today, who knows what we will call each other today? We'll see what happens. But Captain Boswell, how long have you worked for the city?
So come this January, I will conclude my 20th year and get into my 21st year.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
And all in PD?
All for Roanoke Police Department, yes.
Wow, that's really awesome. I wouldn't have thought that. And so what's something that you really like about working for police? You've been here for 20 years.
You know, what's interesting is that's a question we get frequently. Why did you become a cop?
Yeah.
Why are you? It's just one of those things I always thought this is what I'm going to do. So I can't really pinpoint the exact moment, time, incident. You know, it's just something I think I was supposed to be. Law enforcement runs in my family. I have an uncle who's a police chief down in Tennessee. My grandfather back in the day was a constable, which was all kinds of cool stories.
A constable?
A constable.
Like with the billy sticks and the big hats?
Yeah, not the big hat,
Okay.
but he did have this weird little stick thing that they did carry around, which those are not usable anymore or anything. I know my mother said when she was in high school, he worked her like school dances and stuff. So yeah. So
She was embarrassed.
Yeah, well, he wasn't one full time. You know, it was one of
Yeah.
those things where they would call him and be like, "We have this event or this is going on," and he would. It's like a part time.
Okay, so he was community policing back in the day.
He was a farmer, and then he did that on the side.
Okay.
Apparently.
Walk us through the community response team. Who's on your team? What do you guys do?
So I'll start with this. We're hiring because I need a few more, and I can't get more until we get more employees. So I'm in the we put our resources toward patrol and toward our criminal investigations unit. So I'm kind of like the accessory bureau right now. Okay. So when someone's short, we get pulled from. So I'm not fully staffed. Would love to be. So there's my recruiting pitch. Come join us. But I have two officers, Officer Underwood and Officer Marsh, who are strictly community engagement and crime prevention. So they're doing the job of about 7 people right now. And then I have Lieutenant Chris Ramey, who is over the 2 community response guys, and then there's me. Okay. So, and then we farm out to the rest of the department when we have events or things going on. We ask for help, and everybody's been jumping and pitching in.
Well, I can imagine the number of events that happen around Roanoke. There's no way 4 or 5 of you could handle that.
Hey, we're trying. I tell everybody we're a small unit, but we have big hearts and a lot of motivation. So we're just, we come in each week and try to triage what we have going on and what we need to be doing. The interim chief, Jerry Stokes, he came in and said, "Jennifer, you're on special assignment until further notice, and your job is going to be putting together community forums." So that started out with initially like a 60-day, and then he went until further notice. So we're still doing those. We have one coming up this week.
So we know at the community forums we can come and get some food, and that's always exciting.
Yes.
But for our listeners who maybe haven't been to a community forum or who are thinking about going, what is sort of the flow of a community forum? Why would I want to show up? What am I going to learn? What's happening?
So you come in and we ask you to register, and the only reason we want your email address is to give you feedback. And so it's if you don't want feedback, you don't have to do that. But if I work on a topic or problem, I can do a mass email and say, "Hey, we worked on the lighting issue here, or a traffic issue here, whatever the issue or concern might be." You come in, register, grab a plate of food. Sit down at your table. We'll come around with an index card, and you can write your comment, concern, issue, topic, name if you want to be called on. And we have an MC. It's usually Nicole Ross. She's not turned us down yet. She's been doing a great job. And she kind of is the mediator between the public at the event and the panel. And Chief Stokes, he's been the main person Captain Adam Puckett and Captain Andy Pulley will be the panel for this Wednesday night because Chief Stokes is out of office right now. So we're looking forward to it. But the conversation can go anywhere between, again, traffic issues, lighting issues, to more critical gun violence prevention. What are we doing to reduce violent crime in the community? I mean, we're listening. We want to hear what you're saying. We want to hear your comments. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. That's okay. We'll take the uncomfortable and see what we can do to help make it not uncomfortable.
And so for people who are coming in, as you said, you could be hitting some heavy topics in conversation, like gun violence prevention, but I think really in these community forums, even though they're being run by the police department, they could go anywhere.
Right.
It could be your, traffic problems. It could be solid waste management, picking up the trash. It could be anything.
Our panel and our people in attendance are from all over the city. So the city manager's office always has someone there. Code enforcement, fire department, Parks and Rec. I mean, we invite anyone who wants to come contribute, take information back to their teams, listen, be involved. And sometimes we get asked a question and we're like, well, they answer that. And then we have somebody in the crowd that is a Roanoke partner and they go, hang on, I've got an answer to that. And we're like, great, because it saves me from going back, getting the answer and then feeding it back out. So we're lucky to have those partners there with us.
And so coming out to one of the community forums, you get face-to-face interaction with multiple members from the city, multiple community partners. And if you do have questions, not only is this something where we're just taking information back, but you may actually get the answers that you're looking for or find out other resources just by attending with whoever's there.
Right. And it's just, we tried to, the first time we learned a lot. So the second time we did the community forums, the feedback was, hey, we would like the officers and city partners to sit with us and eat. Okay, I'm listening. So the second time, we asked the officers, detectives, everyone to sit in the crowd and eat with the community. So about 30, 40 minutes of networking interaction with some good FaceTime. You always talk, to a cop over the phone. You don't really get that FaceTime with anybody, and it's really nice to hear people and look at them in the eyes and have that conversation. And again, sometimes it's uncomfortable, but that's how we work things out.
Well, one of the statements that I've heard about the police department, from the police department, is sometimes you kind of feel like you're the professional bearers of bad news. You're dealing with folks when they're not having their best day. So it's nice to have a place to come where you can interact with the community can meet you, and it's not in a high-stress situation, right, or in a situation where, maybe one of the worst days you've had in a while has happened.
Yeah, and I realize that, people call 911 because, that one traffic accident is the worst thing that they've ever gone through in their life, and the anxiety, the stress, that's a bad time for them. And they get us, and we might get some of the pushback from that because they have nowhere to release that stress. And so the same thing for us. Sometimes our only interaction with the public is also stressful. So it's nice to de-escalate, nice to kind of start together, breaking some bread and talking and working through some things. And we learn a lot. I mean, we learn how to do better.
And is that sort of the philosophy behind community policing, is really making sure that the officers are becoming integrated members of the community and they feel comfortable and safe coming to you?
For me, we can't do this alone. We can't. There's not enough of us, even fully staffed, to be 100% everywhere in the community. We have got to rely on our community neighbors and business partners to tell us what's going on and to tell us what they're seeing. We've got to work together as a team.
With your community engagement team, you mentioned Officer Marsh and Officer Underwood. That's 2 officers for an entire community. Are they everywhere all at one time, or do they have, specific areas to be in?
They would be if we would let them. We have to set some boundaries there. They're super energetic. They're very genuine and compassionate, and it amazes me what they do that I don't know about, that pops up. They're really trying to spread themselves out there and make sure they're addressing as much of the public's issues, concerns as possible. So sometimes we're like, you can't keep coming in at 6 o'clock in the morning and working until 6 at night, So we've had to sit down and kind of refocus our time and their mental health as well, as they're out here pushing these concerns and trying to find solutions. We've sent them to training. There's actually several hours they have to do to actually officially become a crime prevention officer. It's over 80 hours and continuous education for that as things evolve. They go out to businesses and do crime prevention. They kind of map out with the business what's something in the window that they can take down to provide better safety for their business and customers. Okay. They'll do it too. The Roanoke Housing Authority asks us to come in and do the same thing with all the Housing Authority properties. That's been a big project because once they go out and do 2 to 3 hours of an assessment, they come back and write it up.
Your team is specifically out in the neighborhoods and potentially in those neighborhoods in a much longer capacity than, an officer that might be there for a specific event. They're there for a call or an issue that may have happened, but then after that's, resolved, those officers are on to other things. Right. But the community engagement team is still out in the community and still, kind of like checking back in, making sure things are going okay.
I mean, we have 2 shifts that are on night shift. They switch out, every 6 weeks. It switches there's 4 shifts, 2 on nights, 2 on days, and they switch every 6 weeks. What can they do at 2 o'clock in the morning? Code enforcement's not open at 2 in the morning, There's other partners that are 8 to 5, 7 to 4 type of hours. How do we communicate when there's no one there? So that's where Officer Marsh and Officer Underwood come in, is they take those things and they work with the partners that are open during those daylight hours. Doesn't mean they set those hours up all the time. We work outside of those hours to go to community engagement meetings, work events, different things we have going on. But that's that long-term problem solving that they use those daylight hours to help fix.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned going to community events. What kind of community events are your team at? I mean, I kind of feel like sometimes I see RPD everywhere, but where would somebody see you at a community event?
So like last Friday, we worked with the school systems and the Red Ribbon event that was Friday morning at Preston Park. They went out there, handed out stickers and candy and let the kids look in the cars, and that's one. We also have a reset coordinator, and reset means rapid engagement of support in event of trauma. And that is a civilian employee that works with the police department and other resources in the city. And his name is Lloyd Merchant. We're hiring for a second person for his team because it's going really well. We don't take pictures of him when he's out in the community. We do what we call community walks because we don't want the community thinking, I can't talk to them. So what Lloyd does is he can do 2 different things with those community walks. He does a lot more than community walks. Since I got assigned to the bureau and he's in that bureau, I'm learning so much more about what Lloyd does. Mm-hmm. He's amazing. But on the community walks, pretend we did have an act of violence in a certain block. We go back out, hit maybe 2 blocks more before and after that block, and just say, are you guys good? We've helped fix damage to vehicles. We've helped get therapy, counseling for people, other resources. We did one last week and found out a lady has a lot of cats and she's got no means to address those, and that's important. We need to help her. Her health's declining. She just needs help. And so we were setting that up to do. Unfortunately, the shelter is closed this week. So we're going to have to work on that next week. I'll have to call her this week and tell her what the delay is. But that's important for her and for us to do. And then we just do walks that we just want to talk. He'll pick and select an area that he just wants to go out and walk and see what's going on, and then we hear people and we go back and fix things. One apartment complex says, we don't feel like we have enough fire extinguishers. Great, let me call the fire department and see what the rules are to that. And
sometimes you'll have people from the fire department on the reset walks.
We invite almost the same group of people we invite for the community forums. We invite to come out on these community walks because there's nothing like, you hear a complaint, you hear a concern, there's nothing like seeing it for yourself, and having that one-on-one with that citizen, and that's us getting back into the community.
Well, and you can obviously take the feedback and concerns from the community and take that back, to the city and talk to people and then take it back. But then there's nothing like cutting out the middleman and having those people on the walks to be like, oh, you have an issue with fire extinguishers? 1 second, let me go get, Deputy Chief so-and-so, he's on the walk with us today. Yep. I I've been on a few of the reset walks myself, and it's really great to see the outpouring both from the community, because there are community members who come on these walks, but then also from all of the departments within the city. It's really, really great to see. Are there any community events that are your favorite?
There's one coming up actually that I think is going to be my new favorite. I've not done it yet. It's the Spooky 5K with Runabout Sports and the kids down at the West End Center. So we've been working with them all summer. We're still working with them. We go out, meet them at the Greenway, and the sheriff's office personnel comes, our department comes, Korean police is there, and friends and family, and we run with the children. We have a side-by-side that we follow them for safety with water, snacks. If someone, can't run, we put them on it to get them back to the vehicles. But they've been training, and I can't wait to see them dressed up. And it's open to the community, not just the kids and stuff, but it's kind of fun to see the end of what you've been working with. So I think our community engagement team might be a little dressed up too. I'm kind of interested to see what we bring to the table. So you might see some officers out there that look a little unique or different that morning. It's October 28th, about 8 o'clock in the morning down at Westena Park.
So training for the Spooky 5K race is the Badge Buddies program.
Right.
And so I always try to participate early on when that training program starts, because those kids get fast really quick, and I can only keep up for the first couple weeks, and then I'm you can run with runners after that. But it's really great. I love to see the camaraderie, because the first couple of weeks where that running is happening, some of the kids that haven't been there before are still a little shy. They're still getting used to it, and then by the end, they have like their person that they're waiting.
Oh, yeah,
that's going to get there. Yeah, they're like, I'm running with you today. They're challenging some of the officers and some of the staff that are there to run. Like, it's one of the funnest things. I'm like, I feel like I'm again RPD like at heart when it comes to those programs, because
if you're not there, they get disappointed.
Yeah.
They're like, well, where's so and so, and where's so and so, and you're like, I'm sorry, he's working or she's doing this, and I'll go try to get them back next week. So they look forward to it as well.
Yeah,
so
like,
I think it's
where are they?
Yeah. You see the enthusiasm when they get off the bus and they run to their person, they're stretching and everything. It's just it's a good collaboration between us and them.
Well, and I've, one of the things that always tore at my heartstrings is it is typically a lot of little boys who come to run, and occasionally you'll get little girls coming too. And there was this one girl who comes, and she was one of the last ones to come through, but all of the kids were there waiting for her. They cheer her on, and
got their hands out to be slapped.
It's so great to see. It builds community not only between the kids and the officers, but between the kids as well.
Yeah, so that's I think that one's gonna be, because I love October, I love Halloween, and I love the dressing up and the all the decorations and stuff. It's been such a heartwarming event to do and work with everyone. So that would be, I think it's going to be my new favorite. But I've always enjoyed going to different events, whether it be a neighborhood meeting, or we did the Wells Fargo 9/11 event, and we got to talk to a lot of different people coming in the community for that one. Networking, hearing a lot of different things. I have a whole list on my computer that we've done and we've got coming up to do still. I'm trying to put me on the spot. I should have brought the list in so I could go over it with you.
It's like picking between kids. Which one do you choose?
Yeah, absolutely. But anytime they call us and we work with different partners in the city, we get to sit down and hear things. The community forum we're doing Wednesday, that church reached out to us. They wanted us to come there, and we've been using church spaces just because they have the space for us to meet. It's not specific to a church. It's just they have the meeting space, the parking space, and then they're reaching out, the cafeteria. Hey, come to us. Yeah. And so it's just nice. That's what we want. We want people to want us to be there, and so we've been lucky so far. We still have more to come. We're still doing more of them.
Okay, and that's why you want to head to the community forums held by RPD. They're being held in every quadrant and downtown. If you have not seen one in your neighborhood or your quadrant yet, they are coming. Captain Boswell, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Ms. Corbin. I appreciate it.
And that's going to be a wrap for us this month on If You Noke, You Know. Make sure that you follow along, like, review, subscribe. and we'll catch you next time.